Hello everyone, welcome to uComputing Systems YouTube channel. My name is Eugene, and today I'm going to show you how you can manage your disks, partitions, and volumes on your Windows 8 operating system. I'm also going to show you how you can work with virtual disks, and then also show you how you can convert your partitioning styles from MBR to GPT, and how you can convert your disk type from a basic disk to a dynamic disk using the disk management console, PowerShell, and then diskpatch. So without wasting time, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is to start our Windows 8 operating system on our VMware workstation. I'll just use this button over here to resume my Windows 8 operating system. And then I'll click here to go full screen. Once we are in, I'm going to just bring the default desktop icons so that it makes it easy for me to navigate to my user profile and then my computer. Okay, so as you can see, this is a very new installation. You only have one disk connected to this machine. And so what you're going to do here is to add multiple disks to this machine so that we can use it for this lab session. Alright, so I'll double click here to open my VMware machine settings. You can also click on VM and go to settings over here to open the same window for you. And I'm going to add more disks. I'm going to add 6 virtual disks to this VMware workstation. So I'll click on add over here and click yes over here. I'll select hard disk and go next. And then I'll leave it as SCSI, go next. Select create a new virtual disk, go next. Select store virtual disk as a single file and leave the default size at 60 GB and go next. Finish. If you are using a physical machine for this lab practice, you don't need to go through all this process. All you need is to get your physical disks and then connect it to your hardware. You open your computer and then you connect it to your hardware. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is to add another virtual disk. I'll select hard disk over here, go next. Leave it as SCSI, go next. Create a new virtual disk, go next. And I'll store this disk as a single file by switching this radio button here. And then I'll leave the default size and go next. And click finish. I'll add 4 more. Two more to go. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 6 virtual disks connected to this virtual machine. I'll click OK here. And then as you can see, all the virtual disks have been indicated down here that they are connected to this virtual machine. The first thing we're going to do is to use the graphical user interface to create these types of volumes I was talking about. And then afterwards, we're going to use PowerShell to also create it. And then look at how we can use diskpatch to also perform the same disk management. So I'll right click on computer over here and go to manage. And click on disk management here in the navigation pane. And as soon as the disk management console loads, it tells me to initialize these disks that I've just connected to my machine using one of these partitioning styles. Okay, the limitation of the MBR partitioning style is that you cannot use it to create a primary partition beyond 2 terabytes, but the GPT or the global unique identifier partitioning table has come to fix this particular issue. So you can use the GPT if you're going to create partition sizes beyond 2 terabytes, or if you're not going to create that, you can leave it at MBR. Okay, so one thing that I want to show you here is this. So I'm not going to just initialize, I'll just click on cancel over here, and then let's have a look at something. Once you've not initialized the disk, it's not online, so we cannot create any volume out of it. So we need to initialize it with one partitioning style before you can do it. So to do that in the GUI, you just right click on the disk you want to initialize and select initialize. You have to initialize it before you bring it online. Okay, so you can do it for all the drives that are connected to this machine, or you can uncheck the ones that you don't want. I'll select just one of them and select MBR. Go OK here. So once it gets initialized, you can see it's brought online. So we can start partitioning these ones. I'll right click here on this one, and as you can see, the grayed out options that we had here are gone. So I can now create a simple volume, a span volume, and a stripe volume. You can also create a mirrored volume. So the first thing you're going to do here is to have a look at how you can create a simple volume. To create a simple volume, you can use the basic disk type. So you can leave it at basic, the default basic type of disk, and you can also convert it to GPT and then still create your simple volume. To convert a disk to GPT, just right click on the disk over here, and then you select convert over here. Right now I've converted this one to GPT, that is why it's showing convert to MBR. So you can click and it changes the partitioning style to MBR. You can right click, you change to GPT, and then it works. Okay, so if you want to also convert this disk to a dynamic disk, you can use this option over here. Just right click and convert to a dynamic disk. Okay, the only time that you need a dynamic disk is when you are creating striped, spanned, and mirrored volumes. So to create a simple volume, you don't need to convert your disk to a dynamic disk before you can create a simple volume. To create a simple volume, you don't need to convert your disk to GPT or a dynamic disk before. You can leave it at the default and do it. You can also convert it and do it. It's going to work. So I'm going to leave it back at our basic disk and then convert it back to MBR again, and then we create our simple volume. I'll just right click on this unallocated space over here and select new simple volume and go next. And at this point, you can set the size of the partition you want to create out of this unallocated space, a megabyte. If I want to create 20 GB, I just need to multiply 1024 times 20, because we know 1024 MB makes 1 gig exactly. So 20 will give us this. So if I want 20 GB exactly, this is what I need to do. If you want 40 GB, you have to multiply 1024 by 40. Okay, so I'm partitioning 20 GB out of the 60 GB, and I'll go here next, and then I'm going to assign a drive letter to it. This option over here is used in case you run out of drive letters. In case you have multiple partitions on your machine and you run out of drive letters, you can create a folder on one of the drives that already exist that has an NTFS file system, and then you mount a partition that you're about to create in that folder. I'm going to show you this procedure in the next step. So I'm going to click here, assign my drive letter E, go next over here, call it simple volume, select quick format, use NTFS file system, go next here, and go finish. Okay. The simple volume is done, creating itself. So I have a 20 GB over here. As you can see, it shows over here, it's 20 GB. Okay, now let's have a look at how we can create a partition and then mount it in a folder. In case we run out of drive letters, that is the solution. So what I'm going to do here is to create a folder here on my desktop. I'll name it mounted disk folder. Okay, and it's supposed to be on an NTFS file system. And as you can see, everything we have on this operating system is on our root drive, drive C. And drive C has been formatted with the NTFS file system. So this my folder over here is on the drive C that has been formatted with NTFS file system. And when I go to users, Windows 8, desktop, this is my folder. So this folder resides on drive C. Okay, so I'm going to create another partition of 40 GB and then mount it in this folder. And I've told you already, you only do this in case you run out of drive letters. Okay, so I'm going to right click here and create another simple volume here. Go next. And then I'm going to use my entire 40 GB. Go next. And this time I'm going to mount it in an NTFS folder. I'll switch this radio button to mount and then browse, expand C drive, scroll down to users, expand, scroll down to my user profile, Windows 8, expand, scroll down to desktop, expand, and select this my folder. You can put it on drive C so that it will be easy for you to locate. I'll click OK here. If you don't want to use this long path that I'm using, you can also create a folder on drive C to make the path very short. And I'll go next here, and then I'll name it mounted volume and select perform quick format over here. Go next and go finish. Okay, it tells me that it was not given a drive letter. Yes, we did not give it a drive letter because we have mounted it in a folder. So I'll click OK over here, click cancel, click close over here, and our partition has been created, but it does not show over here, but this is where it has been mounted. So anytime you place data in this particular folder, it goes to our mounted volume partition. So anything that we store over here in this folder will go to this volume that we just created. So in case you run out of drive letters, this is what you need to do. I'll test this folder by just creating a text file in it. I'll call it hello world. And then I'll type something, hello world. And then I'll go file save, close, and it works for me. So everything I store over here goes to this partition that I just created, even though it's not showing on drive C. So that is how we mount partitions in folders. The next thing that we're going to have a look at is how we can create a mirrored volume. The reason why someone would decide to create a mirrored volume is when he wants to have a fault tolerance mechanism in his storage. Okay, when you have a mirrored volume, what is going to happen is that in case one of the disks fails, the other will take over, and then you still have your data in a healthy state. So let's have a look at how you can do that. Before you can create a mirrored volume, you need to have two identical disks. That is a requirement. So as you can see, we have two disks over here, disk 2 and disk 3. And you can see that disk 2 is 60 GB, disk 3 is 60 GB, and that is the requirement. The disks that you are mirroring should be identical. And also, they have to be dynamic disk. So you need to convert this disk to a dynamic disk by just right-clicking on disk 2 and selecting Convert to Dynamic Disk. And then I'll also add disk 3, this one over here, disk 3, and I'll go OK over here to convert these two disks to dynamic disks. As you can see, as soon as we've completed the conversion, the name has changed from the default basic to what? Dynamic. So you can right click here and select mirrored volume, and then go next here, and then you can add another identical disk. Just select on the disk you want to add, and it's supposed to be a dynamic disk, and click add over here. As you can see, disk 2 and disk 3 are dynamic disks, so we can use it. And as you can see, it doesn't allow us to add any more disk because mirrored volumes require just two dynamic identical disks. And as you can see, as I reduce the size over here, they all get reduced. When I reduce it to 40,000, they all change to 40,000 because they have to be identical. Okay, we're going to use everything. Let me just do something here. Add again. We're going to use everything. And go next here. Assign driver letter F. Go next here. And then we are going to name it mirror volume. And check this box over here. Perform a quick format. I'll click next here. Click next. And our mirrored volume is created for us. And when you create a mirrored volume, it does not expand your storage. So if you use two identical disks like 60 GB, 60 GB, the total size of the mirrored volume will still be 60 GB because it keeps a replica of the data that you copy to it on each of these disks over here. Okay, so let's go and test our mirrored volume. I'll just open mirror. As you can see, it's 60 GB in size. We're going to copy our file over here to it. Copy and paste. We're also going to go for some music files. I'll just open computer here, C drive, Windows, media. I'm just getting data to populate this mirrored volume. Okay, so let me get the first line over here. I'll just copy and then paste it on my mirror volume. So these are, let's say, our files that are important to us. So we place it on our mirror volume, and it has a fault tolerance mechanism. So in case one of these disks fails, the data is not going to corrupt. Okay, so let's see something here. I'll right click on my computer and go to manage and select disk management. I'll close this window here. And if one of these disks goes down, then we still have our data because it has a fault tolerance mechanism. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is to intentionally eject one of these disks so that the system behaves as if we have lost one hard drive. This is the second disk, this is the third disk. So I'll leave full screen mode and double click and click on VM settings and then I'll intentionally get rid of disk 3. Okay, I'll select remove and go OK. All right. And as soon as we remove the disk, it tells us that we have a failed what? Redundancy. We've lost one of our drives, so it's left with only one mirror drive. But look, when we go to computer, our mirror volume is still looking great. Unlike our normal simple volume, that when your hard drive fails, you lose every data on it. When you have a mirrored volume and you lose one of your drives, you still have your data. As you can see, we have our data over here and it's still working fine. I'll go back to disk management and I'll scroll down to where we have our failed disk. I'll right click on it and select remove mirror. Take note, you have to do it on the drive that is missing, the mirrored volume that is missing, not the one that is healthy and working well. So I'll right click on this one and select remove mirror, and I'll select this one over here and select remove mirror and go yes. Okay, now we need to ensure that we have redundancy again by adding another mirror to this existing mirror volume, so that in case this one also goes down, our data will still be sustained. So what I'm going to do here is to bring one disk online. I'll initialize one of the disks that I have in my PC and mirror it to the existing mirror drive. I'll right click on disk 4 and select initialize disk. And I'm not going to initialize everything. I'm just going to initialize disk 4 with MBR. Go OK here. And I'll right click and select convert to dynamic disk. Disk 4. OK here. And then once it has been converted to a dynamic disk, I can right click here on disk 3 and select add mirror. And I can select disk 4, the one that I converted to a dynamic disk, and go add mirror. And as you can see, it is in the process of restoring my redundancy. So it is syncing the files that I had on my disk 3 to my disk 4. So we'll wait for it to finish, then we proceed. Once this is done, the yellow exclamation that we have on our disk 4 should disappear, and we should have a healthy mirror drive again. Okay, so the resyncing is done, and we have our healthy mirrored volume again. Drive F is now looking good again. So we have our mirrored volume working fine. So this is how you can restore your mirror in case you lose one of your drives. Let's go and check at computer. Our mirror volume is still here, and when we open, it's still working fine. All right. The next type of disk that we are going to work on is a striped volume and a span volume. So I'm going to create a span volume over here, and the difference between a striped volume and a span volume is that with a span volume, you can use unidentical disk sizes. You can have a 40 GB hard disk and another 20 GB hard disk, and you can span them and it will give you a 60 GB hard disk. Okay, so with a span volume, the disks shouldn't be identical. It's not compulsory that the disks should be identical. But with a striped volume, the disks are supposed to be identical. So if you are creating a striped volume, your disks are supposed to be identical, and both of them do not have fault tolerance mechanism. So if you create a span volume and one of your disks fails, all your data goes down. If you have a striped volume too and one of your disks fail, all your data fails. And a span volume and a striped volume can all support up to 32 dynamic disks. You can span 32 dynamic disks together, and you can also stripe 32 disks together to form a single stripe volume. Okay, so what we're going to do here is to create a span volume, and after that we create a stripe volume. So I'm going to initialize this disk over here, disk 5 and disk 6. I'm going to right click here and select initialize disk. I'm going to initialize all these two with the MBR partitioning style and go to OK over here. And I'm going to right click and convert these two disks to a dynamic disk. You also require that you convert your disk to a dynamic disk before you can create these two types of volumes. So I'll click OK over here. And once they are done, I would right click on any of these drives over here and I can create my span volume. I'm going to select new span volume over here, go next, and then select this disk. You can have multiple disks over here that you can add up to 32. So I'm going to add over here, and with the span volume I can decide to say I'm going to use 40,000 MB and a 60,000 MB for this particular span volume, and it's not going to cause any problem. But with the mirrored volume and then the stride volume, the disks have to be identical. It wouldn't allow you to do this. Okay, so I'll go next here and assign drive letter G to it, and I'll name this one span volume with VOL, and perform a quick format. Go next here and click on finish. And as you can see, our span volume is done creating, and we have 40 GB plus 60 GB, and it's giving us a total of 100 GB over here. So when you open your computer, we have our span volume over here. It works fine for us. So the next thing we're going to do here is to also create our stride volume. An advantage of the stride volume over the span volume is that it has a faster throughput than the span volume. Okay, so let's create this stride volume. I'll just delete this span volume so that I can create my stride volume. I'll right click here, select delete volume. And once I delete one of them, they all go down because it doesn't have any fault tolerance mechanism. So I'm going to create my new stride volume, and we need to make sure these disks are also dynamic disks. I right click and convert to dynamic disk. Check this box over here. Okay. And then I'll create my stride volume by right clicking here on the unallocated space and select new stride volume. Go next, add this one to it, and as you can see, watch this. As soon as I change the size, they all start changing, because with the stride volume, the disks that you are striping is supposed to be identical. Okay, so I'll go next here, assign drive letter G, go next and call it stripe volume. Perform a quick format, go next, select finish. Okay, so the creation of our stripe volume is done. We have success. Let's go and verify from my computer. As you can see, we have our stripe volume over here. It looks good. So we can copy data to it. I think we have some data on the desktop. A small text file. Let's copy to it and test. Stripe volume. Paste. It's working. Okay. So that is that for creating stride volumes, mirrored volumes, span volumes, converting basic disk to dynamic disks, and GPT to MBR partitioning styles. Thank you very much for joining me today. In our next video, we're going to have a look at how we can use PowerShell and DiskPath to create these types of disks, and then also we're going to have a look at how we can create virtual hard disks on a Windows 8 operating system. Thank you very much for joining me today. See you next time. Bye bye. I see the stars through me.